beautiful morning, a very interesting day to be alive and be thankful for all of God's blessings. The very first day in the month of November 2023, and of course, many people would say the rush is finally here, but regardless of how much you feel you have not been able to accomplish all the things that you set yourself to achieve for the year 2023, that is no excuse for you to rush. As the Federal Road Safety Commission would say, when you rush, you might possibly lose your life on the way and still will not or might not make it to your destination. So it is easier and far better for you to slow down, gradually get to where you're going. And of course, there is always life, and as long as there is life, there is hope. And you can also be able to achieve all the things that you missed out on for the year 2023. My name is Francis Oyimaden, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Rise and Shine midweek edition, of course, happening coincidentally the very first day in the month of November. Happy New Month to you, Nigeria, Africa, and the world.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. Beautiful Wednesday morning. It is a good day to rise and shine. Great day to be excited because it's the 1st of November. My name is Uyai Aneka, and I am thankful to be alive and to rise and shine with you this morning. Of course, we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. We're excited to be, giving you the best that we offer on Spectrum Television, all the way from the south of Nigeria, of course. Do also follow us across all social media platforms. Do take advantage of our social media handles, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. And also this morning, phone lines will be displayed on the screen. We enjoy when you share your contribution, sending us WhatsApp messages, the phone-ins, and let's hear Nigerians talk about the issues that we're raising on the floor of Rise and Shine this morning. Well, of course, some of the issues that we'll be looking at this morning, a quick rundown of what we have on the scoop for you. The issue in River State, the power tussle is still ongoing at this time, and of course we are looking at how these issues are going to be led to rest. Of course, yesterday there was a PDP stakeholders meeting, governors forum meeting yesterday at the Oyo House in Abuja. Of course, we're also seeing that at this end of the year, there kidnapping and insecurity issues are on the rise, and the House of Reps is seeking justice for slain corps member. Some of the issues that we're looking at this morning, of course, President Tinubu sets up a committee to consider gaps in the Nigeria police force.
Well, of course, a lot of issues. The River State crisis is top on the list. Different meetings, and President Ahmed Bola Tinubu wading into the matter to resolve the impasse between former Governor of River State Nyesom Wike and, of course, the incumbent Fubara, and the reactions coming from that. We also saw that the Supreme Appeal Court yesterday cleared the candidate of the APC, Silva, to stand for election for the Bayelsa by-elections that is going to happen this month of November. Of course, we're also looking at police reforms happening, where the police council has vowed to bring some new strategies into the police force, and also confirm Betekun as substantive Inspector General of Police. Of course, talks between the Nigerian Labour Congress, the trade union organization, and the federal government over the fuel subsidy removal, and the ultimatum that was issued to the federal government has also been shifted to next week, Tuesday. These and many other things are what we will focus on this morning on Rise and Shine. And of course, like we said, today is the first day of the month. While we wish you a happy new month, you also have the opportunity to reach us out and then send a shout out this morning to your family, friends, and loved ones, just a way of praying blessings into the new month, and of course making them know that you appreciate them. Of course, that also gives you the opportunity to leave your comments and contributions on the different issues up for conversation this morning through the different channels: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, or X as the name implies. Of course, direct messages through WhatsApp, and calls are also very much available to you, all of which you can find those handles on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. But of course, let's start with the very first flash story. The Nigerian Labour Congress was supposed to meet with the federal government as at yesterday. Unfortunately, just before day before that, we saw the trade union and the Nigerian Labour Congress saying they might be boycotting that meeting as a result of the consistent fall between of the naira as against the dollar, and also they raised concerns about the need for the federal government to ensure that they brought up policies that will normalize and restore the value of the naira. But we see that the scheduled meeting between the organized labor and the federal government that was scheduled for after the 30-day ultimatum to meet demands of the former and contained in the MOU that was signed between the federal government and the trade union organizations, which led to the suspension of the planned nationwide strike, has been shifted. Now, and of course, according to the NLC, the meeting will now hold next week, Tuesday. It said the meeting was postponed at the instance of the federal government, and it was shifted to give more rooms for the Federal Executive Council meeting and issues raised by the Federal Executive Council to be addressed holistically, while the Labour Congress and the trade union organizations are also looking at the items and crossing them off their list. Of course, the essence of the meeting with the government was to agree on the milestones and demands yet to be met, and the ones that have so far been met by the federal government, and of course for the federal government to explain why some of those things that they had promised and given commitment to rectify has not been met so far. We saw the Minister of Labor speaking on behalf of the federal government as far as the demands and the postponement in the date of the meeting is concerned. But a lot of Nigerians are asking, will these postponement of the meeting avert anything? Will we see the federal government within this week and next week, Tuesday, being able to meet some of the demands that are very much still on that has not been met yet? Recall, it was just 2 days ago that the Federal Executive Council approved the supplementary budget for 2023, and also yesterday President Ahmed Bola Tinubu wrote to the legislators seeking the approval of those supplementary budget that has been approved by the FEC. Now, one of the things that the breakdown of the supplementary budget is meant to take care of is the wage award that is meant for civil servants, and of course that is a very big concern at this point.
There's a lot happening with regards to this particular strike. Of course, remember, first of all, after the 30-day ultimatum might have passed, that the NLC-TEC did give the federal government, it was expected that, a meeting was going to be held to just see into and analyze the things that the government has been able to actualize with regards to the MOU that was signed. But of course, we see that that particular meeting did not hold, and it has further been shifted. I think part of the strongest reason was that they were not sure if the Labour leader was going to be available for that meeting. We see the Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress, Mr. Toronuhu, stating that the scheduled meeting between the organized labor and the federal government would assess the progress made so far and discuss the remaining demands that have not been met. Of course, this meeting, the organized labor would engage in discussions with the federal government regarding outstanding demands. So far, so good. It is only in the budget that we've heard the wage award has been mentioned. The federal government has set aside a couple of billions that will be used to settle that particular issue when the budget is accepted into by the National Assembly. But what it is today, as of this morning, is that Labour has shifted its talks to next week, Tuesday. So let's see what they eventually decide when they get around to having that particular conversation with the federal government.
Well, we do hope that the extended 1 week period given to the federal government will be enough for them to be able to address the concerns that are still left unticked, and then we will get to see Labour shelve its planned nationwide strike and then be able to save Nigerians from the anticipated or expected hardship that will come as a result of that. But moving away from that, the issue of insecurity has been on consistently. It's literally like every day you wake up to a new spate of crime, and a new wave of kidnapping, a new incident of abduction or murder across the different states of the Federation. Well, we see that the House of Rep is seeking justice for slain court members, and these brings to mind the question of the kidnapped Akwa Ibom corps members who are still in the den of their kidnappers at this point in time. I think one of the biggest reactions Nigerians have had to this story is the fact that we seem to have lost value for the lives of Nigerians. That when kidnapping happens, when Nigerians, innocent Nigerians, are being kidnapped on a daily basis, like we've seen, the federal government, the National Assembly, will rest on its oars and only issue directive to the security agencies, which oftentimes does not amount to those persons who have been kidnapped being rescued. Now, we know that the militaries and the other armed forces of Nigeria have been able to rescue some persons have been kidnapped over time. But when it comes to persons like the core members that we're talking about, it seems like literally no effort is being made to ensure their freedom from the hands of their captors. And now we're seeing, you know, the reps seeking for justice. And the first questions Nigerians would want to ask at this point is, why do we always sit by and watch things go wrong before we take actions? Now, if you're saying you're seeking justice, you're seeking for the people who have been involved in the killing of the core member to be brought to justice, what is the guarantee that we're going to see that? When the core member was in captivity, there was nothing done to remedy the situation. And now the core member is killed, you're seeking justice. How sure are Nigerians that this justice will actually be given?
It's a big question that we're asking, but of course, the House of Representatives yesterday in their sitting vowed to do everything possible to bring the killers of Grace Silas, a core member, to book. Of course, she was a serving core member who was stabbed to death by yet to be identified assailants in Kaduna while jogging on October 18, 2023. Now, of course, this particular incident elicited nationwide condemnation, even as calls to beef up security were made by individuals, civil society organizations, and the National Youth Service Corps. We also see the fact that the resolution of the House to collaborate with relevant security agencies to fish out the murderers, of course, has followed an emotion that was moved by a member representing Langtang North and Langtang South federal constituencies in Plateau State, Benny Lam. Of course, this is a really, really serious issue. I think it would also climb down all the way to the conversation where some Nigerians are clamoring for the cessation of NYSC. Some other people would explain to you that whether or not she was serving, you know, these kinds of, you know, bad events happen across the country at different times. But let us see how the investigations are going to be done. Like you said, it's not just a matter of speaking about it, but how will they go about this investigation to be able to bring to book, you know, persons who murdered, you know, the young lady. But of course, it's an unfortunate death for Grace, and of course, numerous murders of innocent girls and women nationwide. So you can expect that civil society organizations also are hopping on this particular situation to make sure that the security of the girl child and, you know, everything concerning her well-being is upheld. Remember, I think it was the beginning of this month that we celebrated the Day of the Girl Child. So, you know, there's a lot to look into, but holistically, insecurity in all parts of the country, expecting kidnappings, expecting armed robbery, you know, and all kinds of things. Yes, the economy, I think, you know, to just to bring it down a little bit, sometimes you hear people asking and conversing when these you know, robbers, for instance, go to people's houses to rob them. How sure are they that the people inside the house have anything, you know, even for themselves? As you think that, you know, the economy is biting, what makes you think that the other person is faring better than you are? So, but this is a really sorry situation, and let's see what, how the Kaduna's, you know, State Police Command and every other affiliate that has decided to hop on this, which includes the House of Representatives. Let us see how they work out the modality to bring justice to, you know, the killed core member.
Well, when it comes to core members and security, these are persons who are literally called the property of the federal government. And so one would wonder, why is it that people who are called properties of the federal government are the most, which of course, by virtue of placing that name tag on them, makes them the target of bandits, criminal elements, of course. Why is it that there is no security, no adequate security put in place to also guarantee the safety of these core members? And that question will spiral out from different ways. I know that most times when core members are traveling, there is always this advice, always wear your flash your core members costumes, so to say, uniforms, so that people would see and know that you're a core member, even in the vehicles that you are in, which of course, if there is an attack along the way, the very first people that are going to be targeted will be the core members. By virtue of your uniform, an armed robber or a kidnapper who is targeting a vehicle already sees that, okay, this is somebody of value, this is somebody of worth, this is somebody that when I take into custody,
it will raise
questions, and of course there will be concern, and then I can make something off of it. So it's about time the federal government, the NYSC, looks into creating modalities or fashioning out ways to be proactive enough to protect the lives of core members, especially in the eyebrow areas, the flashpoints or the red point zones, where we know that insecurity, banditry, terrorism, kidnappings are all on the high on a daily basis. And of course, I also like to speak to core members. I think sometimes when core members get into an environment, most times they do not take time to understudy the security situation of that environment. How is the environment like? What are the likely things that have happened? What is the history of security in this environment like? Is it safe for me to go out doing certain things at certain time of the day, or is it not safe? Because in as much as we'll say the federal government has a role to play, the NYSC has a role to play, the security agencies have their own roles to play in security, securing lives and properties, we cannot move away from the fact that sometimes the core members themselves could also, expose themselves to danger because of their inability to perceive the already existing history that comes with the environment or the terrain that they have been posted for. I recall just having a conversation with a core member who just recently passed out, and the narration was something that you would literally have so that if the person hadn't been proactive enough to understudy the environment, the person probably would not make it back to, a Akwa Ibom state. But he said, once they got into the community, the first thing they did were to ask questions for the core members who were already there and were about to leave. How is this community? What is the situation like? What is the security like? And then they were briefed. There are certain locations you cannot go. These locations are flashpoint for criminal elements, and their target is primarily core members. So if you find yourself around that point, then you're on your own, because it might take time for security agencies to get there. And then, of course, with that information, they know that from this time, you are not supposed to even step out of your house, of your quarters. And then, of course, the activities within their primary duties and primary assignment are so tailored that at a particular point in time, everybody's supposed to be back in their houses. So when that is done, and then a core member still, for his or her own personal reason, decide to step out, and then you expose yourself to danger, I think it's going to be a shared responsibility between the core members. So while the federal government has its own duties, core members as well, especially those who will be posted out this November, when you get into your location, your respective place of primary assignment, take a look. Get to understudy the environment. Know the security situation before you begin to come out. It's not everywhere that you can just wake up in the morning and begin to jog out. Not by any way excusing the activities of the criminals, by the way. But then, some of the things happening can actually be prevented if we also take our security very seriously.
It's very important that we do these things. Now, of course, we believe it's going to be troubling for the National Youth Service Corps. There's been a lot of back and forth, and that still takes us back to the conversation of the Akwa Ibom state corps members that were, kidnapped on their way to Sokoto whilst the camp opened up. So far, so good. Yes, there may be some deliberations going on the ground, but we have not heard categorically what exactly is being done to make sure that those persons are released, and that is a major issue. But then let's see how these things can change. The Joint Task Force, and then I think also addressing insecurity on a large scale. The Nigerian police and the task force and all of those should also look for how to handle insecurity in small in small parks. When you're talking about robbery and all of those incidents, that basically just unsettles the life of a person. It will be very good if the Nigerian police, lives up to the occasion to give solution to this. But let's move on from that particular story this morning. Of course, we see the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the 31st of October. He set up a special committee that will look at and work on all the gaps in the nation's legal statutes right from 1999 till today. Remember that we have been clamoring this new conversation. Oh, there was a lot of irregularities that was padded by the Constitution. They just concluded cycle of election. So of course we see the president constituting a committee that will look squarely into all of the gaps that is available in the nation's legal statutes. Now, are we looking at the 1999 Constitution again on the fringe of getting re-amended?
Well, there is definitely a lot of things that needs to be done as far as the 1999 Constitution is concerned. You're looking at a complete overhaul that has been called for across different quarters. One of such being that election issues, you're looking at security, you're looking at a rule of engagement between the Nigerian armed forces, the police, the military, the air force, and the generality of Nigerians. You're also looking at deliberations considering the welfare package of Nigerian security forces. You're looking at issues around pension and, of course, emolument that accrues to people who have served Nigeria within the different capacities. Of course, we saw that Mohammed, the General of Police, Betekun Inspector General of Police, rather, Bola Mohammed, Bauchi State Governor, rather, who made the disclosure to journalists while confirming the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Betekun, by the National Police Commission, lauded the choice of Betekun and the Police Council for their stand. But it also stated that the police remains committed to ensuring security of lives and properties. Of course, we also saw the Minister of Police Affairs, Ibrahim Gedem, the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, Solomon Arase, and the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Abdul Rahman Abdul Razaz, in collaboration with Shared Reform Agenda, meant to ensure a comprehensive overhaul of the Nigerian police force. Of course, according to him, the confirmation of the IGP prompted further discussion on the Nigerian police force, and the president has formed a special committee to look at all the gaps in the Nigeria's 1999 constitution with a view to bring harmony and synergy, closing technology and manpower to the Nigerian police force. Now, this raises another very serious concern. Technology and manpower. Oftentimes when we have conversations with men and women of the Nigerian police force, we are told the manpower is not enough. Nigerians have over time called for the deployment of CCTV cameras like we see in Sena crimes for fighting of criminal activities across the states of the Federation. But of course, there has also been concern around manpower, because when you're talking about manning CCTV cameras across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT, you're looking at a huge number of Nigerian police personnel to man those control centers or stations. And of course, people who will be on the lookout 24/7. In the event that something is happening somewhere, they'll be able to get on the phone immediately and inform those on patrol duties to look out, respond to those calls. Outside the shores of Nigeria here, once the number 911 is dialed, literally within the next few minutes, the police force is there to answer to that call. If we are to get to that point in Nigeria, when we bring in technology, when we bring in surveillance equipment such as CCTV and other gadgets that will help the Nigerian police force and other securities in intelligence gathering, and of course being able to respond real time to calls for help and calls for rescue, then we are going to have to look at the problem or the situation of the Nigerian police force being understaffed. You are going to have to look at the issue of recruitment. We're going to have to look at the issue of training and retraining of the manpower itself, because technology is a completely different twist and people need to be thoroughly trained in this aspect before they can handle the responsibilities.
Well, of course, also as part of the issues and gaps that will be addressed by the president is the issue of funding for the Nigeria police force. And there's also information as to regards the fact that barracks across the country have been set up, are going to be put up for privatization. Excuse
Sorry.
me, please. They're going to be put up for privatization, so more like people who are interested can come in and renovate. Because I think it was the Nigerian police force that was saying for several years they have continued to put aside money for maintenance and have maintained some of these barracks, but they're still not up to standard for the accommodational needs of members of the Nigeria police force. So these are part of the things that the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to be invested in when it comes to filling the gap in the Nigeria police force. If the perks of the job are nice, people will naturally want to get the job done. If you're even still talking about, unemployed youth in Nigeria, some of which they do not have jobs, but they're not interested in being part of the Nigerian police force, maybe for a myriad of reasons. But then if, this is done right, then it's going to be, we'll see that one thing that will be established is the manpower that is very, very much needed in the Nigeria police force, as it were. And do not also forget that when the likes of Egbeton Kon had come into office, all of the first line leaders that were in his rank or above him had to be, retired, and those younger. So it still means that we have a lot of catching up to do within the gap in the Nigeria police force. What are the proceedings also when a person has a case? Is it that when you go to a police service commission, the conversations will be different? So we need to streamline what exactly is the expectation, the new vision, as led by the IGP Egbeton at this time.
Well, it's definitely a whole lot of issues. You're also looking at some of the concerns that have been raised by Nigerians. The Nigerian police force, for instance, will tell you bail is free, but Nigerians will tell you bail is not free. And that is one conversation that we've had back and forth. Sometimes you get to Nigerian police stations and you're told, yes, bail is free, but we need fuel to run the operations of the police station. We need to buy papers to print materials for you. We need this and we need that. And that is not being provided for by the government. And as long as the government is not providing those, or the budget by the government is not getting to the respective police unit, then therefore they have to find a way to operate. Of course, we are also talking about, like you've mentioned, there are some police stations that you go to in this country.
Very dilapidated.
Yes, and you ask yourself, is this where the members, the men and women of the Nigerian police force, whose duty it is to protect Nigerians and safeguard properties, are living? Sometimes you go to communities and you find police stations are being operated out of people's houses. And then you ask, how safe and secure are the men and women of the Nigerian police force stationed at that particular unit when you're cohabiting or living side by side with people? That means your security is not guaranteed, or whatever you are doing is also literally being exposed to people within the community, which of course does not play out well, or will not play out well for the security and safety of the Nigerian police force members within such community. But I love the fact that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is opening up for collaboration. I mean, it's about time Nigerians get to realize that building a police station shouldn't just be the exclusive duty or responsibility of the government. I mean, the Nigerian police force, other security agencies are doing the bit of sacrificing for our collective growth, for our collective security and safety. So if we have well-meaning Nigerians, I think in recent time we've seen the likes of Aliko Dangote through his foundation, sometimes donating vehicles to aid the Nigerian police force in their logistics and all of that. If we get to see a lot of Nigerians taking that cue and being able to also invest in providing the enabling environment. I think the last time we had SPO Diko Magdon, he also mentioned that as well, that Nigerians, good meaning, citizens can also come in to help the Nigerian police force.
Exactly.
Come and ask question, where are you lacking in needs? What are your needs? What are the things that you need to help you combat, crime and criminal activities? And then see where you can actually be able to offer help. That would go a long way in, of course, filling the gaps of the lacks of the Nigerian police force, and will also boost the morale of the Nigerian police force to know that, yes, Nigerians are appreciating the works that we are doing, and they are doing their part to ensure that we have everything going. And that, to a large extent, will help in the fight against crime.
It will definitely help in the fight against crime. Let's not forget how some of these gaps and these conditions are psychologically affecting the members of the Nigeria Police Force. Because, I mean, sometimes it looks like you're putting in several years and a lot of work, but then there is nothing to show for it. But then, since this is a move that the president himself is making, let's hope that he answers the question of, you know, the questions of the men and women of the Nigeria Police Force. But we're just going to allow that particular story to rest this morning, and we're going to go all the way to Port Harcourt. The issue there in Nigerian parlance, they'll say it's getting worse and worse. You know, more like we need to address what's really going on. But of course, Rivers elders met in Abuja over the crisis between Fubara and, you know, a perceived sect that is not in his support, because like we said, it's unsubstantiated for, you know, us, you know, Nigerians to suggest that this is a rift that is caused by, you know, the influence on Yes on Wike against Fubara in the state. But of course, we see that the House of Representatives, sorry, I beg your pardon, Rivers elders have met in Abuja over the crisis, and they had quite a number of resolutions that they made with regards to this issue, not forgetting the fact that, of course, this is a representation of the PDP Governors Forum. Now, of course, they highlighted a number of issues that caught their attention and widely frowned at the issue happening with Fubara, of course. But there's a lot to be desired in this particular meeting that was held by the Governors Forum.
Well, of course, when it comes to, I think as of yesterday, Wike issued a statement pointing to the fact that what is happening in Rivers State is currently being looked into by the leadership of the People's Democratic Party. I was expecting to hear from him as to clarifying the situation of whether or not this was as a result of, you know, misunderstanding between him and Fubara, but that didn't happen. But of course, as you just see the chaos in the video footage that we have there, it was a serious situation. This is at the point where Fubara was allegedly shot at by men and women of the Nigerian Police Force while trying to assess the situation as a State House of Assembly. And then you ask a question: what would warrant men and women of the Nigerian Police Force to shoot at the #1 citizen of a state, unless otherwise they were acting on the directive of some other person who probably they feel is of a superior standing in the society other than the governor of the state? But of course, you can also see the youths very much solidly behind Fubara there. And of course, speaking up against the leadership of the police force in Rivers State. I think we'll just give voice again to Fubara and then come back to this conversation.
Let me say, the good people of Rivers State, it's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that we should be experiencing this kind of thing again. After about 9 years ago, when we had a similar experience. I got information, distressing information, very late yesterday. And I said this morning, I will come and see for myself. The truth about it, in our dear state, everybody who knows me knows I'm a peaceful person.
Yes.
I can never, for any reason, even if I'm aware that there is plot to impeach me for whatever reason, I'm not bothered about it. But I'm worried that a facility like this, that we used taxpayers' money to build, will be destroyed for selfish reason, just to please somebody. It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
I'm calling on the security agencies. From what I've seen, the security agencies even compromised.
Yeah, exactly.
They were shooting at me. They were shooting at me. This operation was shooting at me directly. Yes. But it doesn't matter. Somebody will die one day.
Yes. I want to die with you.
I want to die. When people hear Fubara, they say, who is this Fubara? Is that man that was killed one time for a struggle? That is what I want to be.
You will not die.
I am not against anybody. I am not planning anything against anybody. But I don't know where all these things are coming from. Let it be put on record whoever masterminded this thing is trying to shift. I had some people gathered here to do whatever. That is purely rubbish. Yes. Purely rubbish. Right. You cannot sit when there is a problem and you say you're doing anything. What are you doing? I'm the chief security officer. I'm the head of the government. Yes. The first person that should come, declare the place, and create an alternative place for assembly to sit. So whatever action for our good people on River State, I know you're prayerful. You've been praying for me.
Well, of course, Fubara there, reiterating the fact that he's the Chief Security Officer of River State, and that's the truth. And either ways, however you want to say it, he remains the Chief Security Officer of River State. Well, there have been conversations about Wike being the one who brought him into power. Well, of course, there have also been conversations around the fact that Wike was also brought into power by somebody, and he governed River State almost like an emperor. And of course, Nigerians are used to the kinds of body language, the kind of comment that came from, Wike when he was the governor of River State. And as posited by the elder statesman, Adrian Clark, yesterday, who strongly advised President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to caution the FCT minister and former governor of River State. He said when he was in position of power, when he was the governor of River State, there was no fight, there was no struggle. He literally ruled like an emperor, and nobody attempted to impeach him or set him out of power. And then, of course, if you look at what Fubara is asking, tell me exactly what my crimes have been within the last 5 months of my being in office that would warrant the impeachment move. What crimes have I committed? What have I not done in the interest of the state? What actions have I taken that are against the provisions or constitutional provisions of my office that will deter or will lead to the move for impeachment made by the State House of Assembly? So other than political witch hunting, other than some move to destabilize the peace and unity currently being experienced in River State, as presented by Adrian Clark, this is just a move by a politician to continue to exert power and force over the people of River State. It's literally like trying to sit from somewhere and control and manipulate what is happening in another location. And when the person is moving away from, giving you that control button, then of course you feel helpless, and the next way is to take to violence, try to cause chaos and insecurity, so people would feel like the person is incompetent and then try to take over. But be that as it may, we do hope that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu wading into the matter will actually go a long way in resolving the situation happening in River State.
Well, another thing that we see is the fact that the president has waded into the Fubara Wike rift. Police Council confirms. Of course, Egbetokun has said it is a substantive move by the IGP. Now, I think it was yesterday when the PDP Governors Forum held, one of the appeals that they had made also was for the president to look into the issue that was happening in Port Harcourt, River State. Let's see how all of this is going to be resolved so that it doesn't escalate into a more serious issue at this time. But that's where we're just going to lay these stories to rest. A lot more is happening. We will still delve back into the Fubara story to look at all the different angles that is still brewing and fermenting trouble. At this point, we move up to Daily Spotlight, where we bring you information from the front pages of our national dailies.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Of course, this is the Daily Spotlight segment where we bring you information from the front pages of our national daily stories that are making the rounds this first day of November 2023. So our very first stop is going to be the Vanguard. Of course, Rivers State issue. Rivers, Tinubu wades in, Wike Fubara meets and greets in Abuja. We also see here no plan to redominate Naira, says CBN. Zenith Bank's gross earnings jumped 114% to 3.1 trillion naira. We also see here Fidelity Bank wins Export Finance Bank of the Year award. Nigerians have taken steps backwards to remain a country, says annual coup. PDP governors meet on Rivers crisis. We want to return but can't, recalled envoys. PDP governors welcome Supreme Court judgments, slam contradictory ruling on Plateau. Super Falcons trust Ethiopia 4-0. And that's all the stories that we have on the front page of the Vanguard.
Our next paper this morning is the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, and we have the kick at the river crisis. PDP governors call for ceasefire, says Tinubu has intervened. No quarrel too big to resolve, Wiki. And of course, protesting youth storm Speaker's residence, police arrest many. That's the reason page 3 and 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Appeal court affirms Natasha, winner of Kogi Central Senatorial seat, reverses Silver's disqualification as APC candidate. That's the reason page 24. PDP chairmanship, why party chieftains zero in on Saraki. IU suit stalling emergence of new chairman. That's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. We'll also see, still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, Senate confirms FIRS chairman Adedeji. That's the reason page 5. No plans to redenominate Naira, CBN. That's the reason page 6. National Assembly passes 2.177 trillion supplementary budget through second reading, page 25 as the story. Of course, we also see Police Council confirms Betekun as IGP. Tinubu sets up committee to close constitutional gaps. Reps invites minister over 1.1 trillion conditional cash transfer. That's the reason, page 3. Building collapses in Ekiti. Schoolgirl killed. 4 others injured, page 12 as the story. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Moving away from the Nigerian Tribune this morning, our very next paper is Daily Trust. Big story on Daily Trust. Cash scarcity returns to Kano, Borno. Banks ration withdrawals. ATMs run dry. Abuja BDC operators decry Naira crunch. Old notes won't be phased out by 31st December. Of course, that was a really big question and a really big concern. Remember that the ultimatum to withdraw the old naira from the the system was by the 31st of December, but alas, the Central Bank of Nigeria is saying that old notes will not be phased out by December 31st. But when we are also seeing that cash scarcity is returning to Kano Borno, that's a problem, and it seems to be something that is resurfacing again. Well, we have here Governor Malabuni building a stronger post-insurgency Yobe state. Okay, there's a lot of pictorial story there. I think it's something on watch that we need to look into, and that's what we have on the front page of the Daily Trust.
Well, of course, next up this morning takes us to the front page of the Nation newspaper. On the front page of the Nation, we have Fubara Wike feud. Tinubu PDP governors mediate. Governors praise president for intervention in crisis. Freedom for judiciary. Supreme Court verdicts as close 2023 elections. We also see, still on the front page, Natasha is Kogi Central Senator. Senate gets fourth woman. Fourth woman, rather. That's on stories on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. We see motion on injunction. Court finds Ayedatiwa case adjourned to November 7. That's the reason, page 27 of the Nation newspaper. Still on the front page of the Nation, Court of Appeal restores Temipria Silva to the ballot. Ensure peaceful poll, Diri urges security agencies. Rising insecurity in Kogi worries SDP APC running mate under fire. That's the reason, page 3. And of course, just to wrap it up on the front page of the Nation newspaper, We see NEDC lifts victims of Maiduguri market fire with 2 billion naira. The story is on page 6. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Nation this morning.
Well, our very last stop will be the Punch newspaper. We'll take the Punch newspaper this morning. Of course, Rivers crisis is what is there on top. Tinubu PDP governor stop Fubara's removal. Protesters arrested. We also see here PDP governors excited as Tinubu intervenes. Wike receives Niger Delta leaders mom over crisis. Protesters, police dash at speaker's residence. Fubara's kinsmen seek Rivers CP's removal. Okay. And there's a lot happening with that Rivers story. Now, we also see here FG budget 552.6 billion naira for arms anti-terror. We also see here Senate launches fresh probe into Naira redesign. Page 7 is where we can find details of that. Lagos secures $1.3 billion for fourth mainland bridge. Others. Appeal court clears silver for Bielsa polls. Fine challenger 1 million naira. Okay. Oyan Dam. Ogun communities panic over fresh flooding. Pages 4 and 5 is where you can have the details. Last year and this morning, here's Zenith Bank's quarter 3 profit rises to 505 billion naira. Page 35 is where you can find the details. And that's all we have on the Vanguard this morning.
Well, that takes us to the end of a daily spotlight. Of course, a lot of stories on the front pages of our newspaper for you to look up and read up this morning. But this is where we'll take a pause and head out to the news brief decks where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us on. When we come back, a lot more will be unveiled on Rise and Shine. Just stay with us.
International Day for the Eradication of
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve voting license in county.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin this morning with a report that President Bola Tinubu has hinted that the challenges bedeviling the solid mineral sector will be a thing of the past, as his administration is determined to tackle the difficulties inhibiting the ease of doing business in the sector. He also assured those interested in investing in Nigeria, as his government was determined to create a more conducive atmosphere for genuine businesses to thrive. Tinubu made this known at the second edition of the African Natural Resources and Energy Investment Summit in Abuja. He warned that the government would no longer tolerate criminal adventures and their criminal collaborators. Away from that, the federal government has called for a two-state solution that will end the Israeli-Palestinian age-long conflict. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, made this known to journalists after a meeting with the Palestinian ambassador to Nigeria, Abdallah Shawish. Reports say that Israel has heavily bombarded Gaza since Hamas gunmen stormed across the border on October 7th, killing more than 1,400 people, mostly civilians, and kidnapping at least 240 others, including children, according to Israeli officials. We head straight now to the Green Chambers, where the House of Representatives Committee on Aviation Technology has expressed its readiness to work hard to revive the nation's aviation sector. The committee chairman, Thomas Eriyetomi, stated this in an inaugural meeting of the committee in Abuja. The task before the committee is to come up with enabling laws that will reposition the sector for the good of Nigerians and Nigeria. According to him, the quality of members of the committee shows the seriousness the House leadership attaches to the committee, and the expectation is high. We head straight now to the foreign scene, where protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza interrupted U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken during a Senate hearing. According to reports, numerous people stood in the crowd and repeatedly yelled, "Ceasefire now." Secretary Blinken and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin testified about the White House $106 billion national security funding request. It includes $14.3 billion to support Israel's military effort against Hamas. Standing up one by one, protesters waited for Blinken to begin his testimony before shouting over him again. The Secretary of State paused and lawmakers were forced to suspend the hearing several times. And in sport, in a dominant display, Nigeria's Super Falcons sealed a 5-1 aggregate win against Ethiopia, with Atletico Madrid's Rasheedat Ajibade still in the spotlight. With the win, Nigeria advances to the next round, where they will face the winner between Uganda and Cameroon in the ongoing Paris 2024 Olympic qualifiers. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Chai, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning and happy new month.
As of state government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve voting license in county.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories on how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Of course, welcome back. It's Rise and Shine Midweek Edition, the very first for the month of November. We sincerely appreciate you always being there to be part of the conversations. In case you did miss out, we've brought a lot of talk this morning on Talking Nigeria. You can catch up on our social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Of course, we started off with the issue where the House of Assembly, or the reps, is seeking for justice for the slain core members who was allegedly stabbed to death while jogging. Of course, that raised a lot of issues and questions bordering on the security of each and every one of us as Nigerians. We also talk about the postponed planned meeting between the federal government and the NLC and TUC as far as the issue of fuel subsidy removal is concerned. Recall we're supposed to have that meeting at the expiration of the 30 days ultimatum issued by the organized labor to the federal government. Of course, 15 items was listed on the MOU that was signed, which led to the suspension of the strike. And we're told that the meeting is going to hold next week, Tuesday. This, of course, is to allow the federal government to put its house in order in addressing some of the concerns that were listed in the MOU that are yet to be met. Of course, we also recall that it's just yesterday that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu wrote to the Senate seeking the confirmation and approval of the supplementary budget for the 2023, the second one for the year, which of course will address some of the concerns that was raised by Labour. We also talked about the president setting up a committee to look into considering the gaps in the Nigerian police force, of course, as far as the 1999 constitution is concerned, and the fact that the acting Inspector General of Police, Betokun, has been confirmed as the substantive Inspector General of Police. We also talked about the power of Tozala in Rivers State between the former governor of Rivers State and now Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and the governor of Fubara. Of course, the crisis spiraled out where Fubara Lechu was shot at by men and women of the Nigerian police force while inspecting the State House of Assembly, who was allegedly bombed by some criminal element, and all of the issues around it. We also saw that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu waded into the situation, and there was a meeting of the leaders and stakeholders of the People's Democratic Party to resolve the issue in Rivers State. A lot more confirmations and conversations we brought to you this morning. Of course, you can catch up on our social media platforms, spectrumtvlive.ng. But right about now, we want to focus on the issue of the conditional cash transfer. We see that the reps has summoned the minister, Dr. Beta Edu, over corruption charges. About 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, we saw the National Assembly making a move to, probe the activities of the N-Power program and the corruption allegations that surrounded it. Of course, Nigerians would say, as far as the N-Power is concerned, we've seen a lot of criminal activities happening. People who get enrolled into the scheme and don't show up in offices but are getting monthly allowances from the scheme. People who are not even enlisted, do not show up, but are getting allowances. The huge number of persons does not, tally with the number of people who are actually on ground to do the job. So a lot of concerns about corruption in the different social investment scheme that has been instituted by the federal government. This time around, we're seeing the House of Representative Committee on Constituency Outreach and Poverty Alleviation inviting the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Beta Edu, to appear before them for a briefing on the formula adopted for the distribution of the sum of 1.1 trillion naira conditional cash transfer to 15 million households across the country. Of course, the resolution followed a motion of urgent public importance brought before the House during plenary by the lawmaker representing Irepodu Olorunda Oshobo Orolo Federal Constituency in Osun State, Morufu Adebayo. Of course, this is a very serious concern when it comes to questions. Dr. Beta Edu so far has been very vocal in talking about the reforms that she's bringing to the ministry to ensure that people are well catered for within the social investment scheme of the federal government. We saw people who were not before now included in the social register being included, the likes of retired servicemen and women and their wives. We're looking at the elderly also being considered into the social investment scheme, and lots of other different categories of Nigerians who were not taken care of within the last dispensation. But of course, Nigerians had also questioned. Remember, there was a misunderstanding or disagreement between the Nigerian Governors Forum and the federal government over the makeup of the social register, which allows for the categorization of the poorest of the poor. So Nigerians are hoping that the minister at this point will be able to, open up to the National Assembly members. But beyond that, Nigerians also expect that, the allegations that of fraud that actually happened before the minister took over can also be probed, investigated, and of course, justice served.
Yes, of course, justice served is part of the things that we expect. But I think the most surprising thing at this time is the fact that Dr. Betta Edu has already been called in for probe by the House of Representatives. Like he rightly said, she has been one of the most vocal ones available on SIT and has more like continued to carry Nigerians along with the, poverty alleviation schemes and plans of, the Renewed Hope agenda led by President Bola Tinubu. So it is surprising that the House of Reps has called in, but then it will not be out of place for us to see her being called in at this time, because Francis, several millions of naira, dollars had been borrowed for these schemes. Initially, it was said that this aid was going to be sent to 15 million households. The House of Reps wants, Betta Edu to come in and explain. These 15 million households, have they hitherto been reached? How were they reached? What kind of data were you able to generate and use? Let's see the data and how it was collated. Because I know a lot of people keep asking. I've personally had people calling, and have questions, say this is a media house. What exactly is happening with this 15 million households and the funds that the federal government said they were going to share across board? There are people who believe that all of those things are just stories. Who exactly has been touched by these funds? We always continue to say, let's be careful when we are borrowing these monies, so that we are not just finding a channel for monies to be siphoned into the pockets of selected few that have access to, the treasury of the federal government through signatures and all of that. So, but the House scrutiny of the conditional cash transfer program is likely to intensify in the coming weeks as lawmakers seek to ensure that the program is meeting its objectives and the taxpayers' funds are being used responsibly. Also, let's not forget that to a very large extent, apart from monies that are borrowed from, all of the loans that we borrowed from the Chinese loan and the World Bank, IMF and the likes, the other thing that generates funds for us in Nigeria is the taxes that we pay. Remember that we actually do pay taxes across different things. It is just now that the federal government is trying to cut down our taxation to, Francis, if I remember rightly, I think it was 10, move it down to 10 holistically to cover everything, or less than even 10. So, there are admonitions here by the House of Reps saying we do not want to waste taxpayers' money. Let's Betta Edu come in and explain to us what's been going on. But I think the biggest issue here is being highlighted for corruption so early in her ministerial career under this dispensation. Would that be just mere speculations as to the fact that, and the perceived notion of, she has a lot of money passing through her ministry at this time? But if not, let's see what the investigations will prove. But one would always hope that the likes of Betta Edu, who has saddled with the responsibility of reaching the poorest of the poor, as has been said in Nigeria, would have a better heart than trying to siphon monies at this time.
Well, Dr. Betta Edu is definitely going to have a lot of questions to answer, but mostly what the National Assembly is trying to investigate at this point is not really corruption on her part, because, she just kick-started the social conditional cash transfer, or is meant to kickstart this month, rather, the month of November. So what the National Assembly definitely seeks to achieve is to see how this list have been compiled and who forms the part of the list. But one thing that has struck my attention this morning is the fact that the House has regretted that there has been a lot of unsatisfactory feedback from the ways manners palliative to vulnerable Nigerians have been handled by ministries, departments and agencies, which they admit does not in any way or by any way reduce hardship in the country. And they said it is pertinent to remind the House of the ugly scenario witnessed during the COVID-19 palliative distribution a few years ago, where items from international donors meant to cushion the effect of the pandemic was mismanaged. Now, that is one thing that we cannot move away from. Nigerians are still very much living with that memory where we discover food items from multinational organizations, international donor agencies to Nigeria to help Nigerians were stashed away by politicians in warehouses. And as far as the palliative that was just released is concerned in Nigeria, most Nigerians, a greater percentage of Nigerians will tell you that palliative never got to the people it was actually meant for. And the few ones who actually got it, got a paltry sum of maybe 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of rice, a custard, pail of rice. And then, of course, this does not in any way help in cushioning the effect of the fuel subsidy removal of Nigerians. I mean, how much can 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of rice, a 4-liter custard pail of rice go for a family of, say, 3, 4? Even if it's one person, in a week, that 1 custard of rice, if you eat that in a week, is gone. So
I'm imagining how you're going to eat a custard bucket of rice yourself in a week.
But seriously, it's gone. I mean, let's assume that's the only foodstuff you have in the house. So you're eating Monday through Saturday or Sunday. Before it gets to Saturday, that rice is long gone. So it's a great cause for concern. But Nigerians would hope and wish that beside this move and calling for the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, to come answer a question. What is the House's really motive behind this? Is it a move to implicate Dr. Betta Edu? Is it a move to resolve the issues that are seen in the distribution process? Is it a move to ensure that Nigerians do not further suffer from the inability of government officials, the inability of government ministries, agencies, and departments to address the concerns that have been entrusted to them? Because if we call the minister in and there are questions and she's able to answer those questions and clarify, yet the minister is not going to go around all the ministries that are saddled with the responsibility. She's not going to go around the respective states of the federation, the local government areas, the different communities to distribute the palliative. There are agents of government who are going to do this in collaborations with the different committees set up at the community level. So if we do not get a commitment on the part of Nigerians to be sincere, accountable, and honest in their dealings, then we're still going to go back to the same thing. So it calls for the National Assembly to look past just questioning the minister to actually preferring solutions to address the concerns. Now, of all the reports that we have gotten of people who have diverted or siphoned the palliative meant for Nigerians, how many of those have been tried so far? Is there a special court that has been set up to try these people for the criminal activities or further, reducing the move by the federal government to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy? Or we are just seeing people arrested, bail granted, and that is the end of the story. So it calls for a lot more proactive, decisive actions to be taken by the National Assembly. However they're going to do it, they are the legislators. Maybe put a law in place to say when there is a crisis and there is palliative being given to Nigerians, anybody found wanting or being, interfering with the process of letting that palliative get to Nigerians will get XYZ jail term, would be fined this, would be done this too. That would serve as a deterrent. But until we get to that point, it's just going to be business as usual. And most people would definitely want to take advantage of the poor Nigerians and different schemes that have been instituted by the federal government.
Well, the federal government needs to move and take steps that will make sure that transparency is a part of what they are doing. And when monies are involved, transparency is very, very important. Let's see how these schemes are being enacted and how they intend to go about it. Remember that when Dr. Betta Edu did come in, she had said the old register that was being generated under the former dispensation was going to be done away with, and new modalities were going to be formulated in order to have a fresh social register, and it's supposed to cut across the 36 states of the federation, and all the sub-regions, just so that we can know how we are handling these issues. But when you say that the first tranche of palliative have been delivered, but yet we have a lot more Nigerians that cannot testify rather that they had received any of these palliatives, then we are looking at a very serious issue on our hand. Not also forgetting that at the beginning of all of this palliative conversation, we had stakeholders and, civil society organizations call right to the presidency saying, we do not believe that just giving households 3,000 naira, 800 or 8,000 naira and a bag of rice and all of that, a small portion of rice, and all of that is the best way to alleviate the stress that is going to come with subsidy removal. There were several other, projects that were introduced. So, but it's more like there's one thing for you to give an advice or a suggestion, and then there is another thing for implementation. Better I do would have to live up to the expectation and, please the powers that have instituted her into that office. Although appointed, you have to know that you're there to serve the people. And let's not even forget that I think it was earlier on this week where we had the president defending his chief of staff in the person of Femi Gbajabiamila. When we also begin to see some of these ministers that are, putting forth the work, so to speak, in their ministries, will it now be a case of every now and then, before they've even gotten the chance to settle into the office, big questions are raised about them, and then their principal now has to be the one re-endorsing them in the eyes of Nigerians. But it is important that, this ministry, that is saddled with the responsibility of taking care of the poor, it lives up to the expectation. And it's important because of the time that we live in our electoral and democratic landscape, that transparency is one way that the hearts of Nigerians can be brought back to favor the system.
Well, we do hope that the investigation and the questioning by the National Assembly gets to yield result. Dr. Beta Edu has so far shown that she has the ability, the capability to handle the ministry through the different things that she has brought on. But this is where we're going to take a short pause and going to short time out. When we come back, we'll be returning with our guests. And of course, our focus will be on the the appeal court verdict, acknowledging that Silva can actually stand for election in Bayelsa State. To stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my Lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back. Thanks for still being there. And if you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, the midweek edition. We're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of the Akwa State, Nigeria. Of course, talking Nigeria and Rise and Shine so far. If you're just joining us, one way to catch up on all the conversation and the issues we have looked into this morning. Follow us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtvlive.ng. Of course, get to our YouTube channel and you will have in real time all of our content coming out from Spectrum Television. Of course, this morning we are going to be having a focused conversation and we are looking at the Bayelsa state government polls. Now, the appeal court has cleared Silva to stand the election as opposed to all of the controversies, that surrounded that particular aspirant. A brief history on who Silva is. Of course, his political career started in 1992. That makes it 31 years ago when he won a seat in the House of Assembly election representing Brass constituency in Old River State. Now, at the time, he was the youngest of all the members in the House of Assembly. Of course, his political career has continued to grow, and he was appointed as the Special Assistant to the Minister of the State for Petroleum in 2004 under the auspices of Dr. Edmond Dakuru. We also have the fact that he continued in that position until he resigned to join the PDP gubernatorial primaries in 2006 in Bayelsa State, in which he placed second behind Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. After the PDP presidential primaries election, and Dr. Jonathan was appointed as a running mate to the then Umaru Musa Yar'Adua of blessed memory, the gubernatorial candidacy for PDP became vacant, and conventional wisdom took the better of the political actors, and Silva was elevated to occupy the position of PDP gubernatorial candidate. Of course, there's a long read of things here that would like to just go through. Of course, we see that as a candidate of the People's Democratic Party, he won the 2007 Bayelsa State gubernatorial election and succeeded Goodluck Jonathan, who went on to the position of vice president. Now, Silva's opponent in the 2007 election, Ebitimi Agbare of the Action Congress, legally challenged his victory, although the Bayelsa State Election Petitions Tribunal upheld Silva's election. Now we are looking at how the trajectory of his political career has been over time. Now a new election was held on May 24, 2008, and Silva, again running as the PDP candidate, was overwhelmingly elected with 588,204 out of about 598,000 votes. He was sworn in again on May 27, saying on this occasion that he would form a broadly inclusive unity government. Now, on January 27, 2012, his tenure was terminated by the Supreme Court, with an acting governor appointed to oversee the state until the election of February 2012. Now, Silva was appointed by President Buhari on Wednesday, August 21st, 2019, as the Nigerian Cabinet Minister of the State for Petroleum Resources. Now, that's a rundown of who, Silva is with regards to politics. Now, he's been attempting to stand in as gubernatorial candidate in the now off-season gubernatorial race in Bayelsa State. But at some point, his name was suggested to be struck off. Then again, the appeal court has cleared him to stand in the election. I won't have this conversation on my own this morning. Joining us this morning is Augustine Osukwo, who is a lawyer and a human rights activist. Let's break down this conversation of some of the disparities that we are seeing in the functionality of the courts and INEC with regards to how they uphold or take out people. Good morning, Augustine. Good to have you on the show.
Morning, ma. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you are doing well this morning.
Yes, I am doing well. Thank you. I hope you are doing well too.
Thank you very much. I'm doing great. So I know you've just heard me trying to give a summary of, the political career of Timothy Silva of Bayelsa State. It's no news that he was going to be taken out of the November 11 off-season election coming up in the state. But then again, the appeal court has cleared his name and he's going to be standing for the election. In the overall, what are your thoughts about the personality of Timothy Silva and how he has continued to be back and forth with that particular seat of governor in Bayelsa State?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the background fact and the narrative you have, given the historical background of Mr. Timothy Silva. I think it's interesting to see that, in all of his travesty politically, and like you rightly said, going back and forth. And, it also a call to look at his own, fundamental rights as enshrined in the Constitution, the right to, aspire to any political office in line with the Constitution as a Nigerian citizen. And so this is what he has been doing over time. And that you found out that under the old River State, where they were, in one, territorial jurisdiction, he had been a House of Assembly member before the Bayelsa State was created, and he now became a governor. And that election, of course, as you rightly mentioned, was set aside by the tribunal and, of course, upheld at the Court of Appeal. So, before then, he then became another, governor again in 2008 election. And then, after almost completing his tenure, the same election was also set aside because it was a pre-election matter and by the Supreme Court. whereby the then speaker was sworn in to, stand in as a temporary, presiding officer of the governor's, of the governor's office. So Mr. President, political aspiration has been very, sort of interesting to us because he's been going up and he's been going down. Now suddenly he has come back again, having, been out of office in 2012, and he wants to again contest in the same position, whereby you have some conflicting, issues by some of the chieftains of the APC. Don't forget, as at that time when he was the former, he was under PDP, and now he's in APC, and somebody in the same APC is saying, no, you cannot contest again. He's been taken to court, and the court at the Federal High Court, of course, agreed with the, with the claimant, asking INEC to disqualify and remove the name of Timothy from the ballot. Then wherever we went to the Court of Appeal. All these things, and the Court of Appeal, of course, have already, set aside the earlier judgment by the Federal High Court. Now affirming Mr. Timothy that he is qualified and is authentic person to hold the office name, to have the flag of the APC in the forthcoming Bayelsa gubernatorial election. So what we can make of all of this is that the pre-election matters. Of course, even the election matter in Nigeria ought to have always been, completed before somebody is taking oath of office, before somebody is allowed, to exercise and then become the governor or the president of the country, because that is when somebody or litigation can be seen to have ended. The problem that we have as per the issue with Timothy, which was canvassed at the Federal High Court by the claimant, is that leading to his disqualification by the Federal High Court is that he has, under Section 182 of the Constitution, he has already been sworn in twice as the governor of Bayelsa State, and the Constitution allowed for 2 terms of maximum 8 years in office to a certain individual. And so the argument now is that having been sworn in twice in that, same office, he cannot again aspire to go into that same office. That was the basis the Federal High Court agreed and then said, no, you have already been sworn in twice. But, the Court of Appeal is given a new dimension, which of course is the law. The Court of Appeal, first of all, is saying the Federal High Court do not have the jurisdiction to entertain that matter because the issue of nomination of candidates, in a political election is squarely that of political party affairs. And so if a political party chooses to nominate whoever they deem fit, you cannot, the court cannot interfere. It has become a law in Nigeria. So once a political party deem anybody fit, whether somebody, for instance, we have seen when some persons are crossed over from one political party to the other, and then have not have the normal time, the normal period that is provided by the political party constitution, that you should be a member before you are qualified to stand in election. And because there is a clause for waiver, and then the political party can decide to waive giving that person a waiver that he has the right to stand. And once he's been nominated, the court said no, the court cannot even interfere on that. So that was the first ground that the court said Federal High Court judgment was, unfounded. Now the second one is that the APC chieftains who took Mr. Pierre to court, does not have the locus. He had admitted that he was never, a contestant in the primaries. He was never one of those that contested along with the Timothy. So for you to have the locus to now approach the court and say disqualify this person, you must show that his emergence in one way or the other has affected your own right. Okay, you cannot just go and say, oh, he has been sworn in twice, he has been a governor before in Bayelsa State, he cannot again. No, the court said this person did not have the right to question Mr. Timothy Silva's candidature. So
but we had justice. Okay, Augustine, we had Justice Donatus Okoro actually stating that allowing Silva to contest again would be breaching the provisions of the 1999 Constitution. Now, one of the issues that we've seen in this electoral season is the Constitution saying one thing, and seemingly so, the jury is interpreting another thing and giving life to certain, certain trends. So if the 1999 Constitution, as quoted by Justice Donatus Okorowo, does not allow the likes of Timi Silva to recontest because he has served twice averagely in Bayelsa State, even as brought forward by the, the person who took him to court. How then is he now upheld to go back there?
Okay, fine. Now, the legal, analysis of that issue is this. It's very simple. Now, in your preamble, the historical background that you've given about Mr. Timothy Silva, you have said in 2007 he was elected. But in 2008, that election was set aside. He was sworn in, having been, announced, elected by the INEC, and then he assumed office by being sworn in. But soon thereafter, within a year, that election was set aside. In law, that election, that sworn in and then election are totally become a nullity. So he is not taken to have, been taken out of office, because at that point, the election that led to that swearing in has been founded to have been, faulty, and then the court has rightly set aside. So that 1 year is already, not recognized. Then another one is this same president won again in 2008 and was sworn in, and almost to the end of his tenure, as he rightly said, that election too was set aside. He did not complete the term. So even if that should be, I think that should only be the first 4 years, because that one, granted, he took it from 2008 and 2012, but he did not complete that tenure. And
is this going to be an expected trend with Timi Silva? So let's say now that he has been cleared to actually stand the election, is this something that we are expecting to see again? Because it seems his seat, although he won that other election by a landslide, was contested and overhauled. Is this something that the Bayelsa people should be expecting to experience again? And how is this good for the political architecture in Bayelsa State? And sometimes, as Nigerians would always ask, does he really have to be the governor of the state? He has served once, served in the ministerial cabinet. Does he really have to be governor of the state?
Okay, thank you. Now, the true position is this. This issue of Timothy Silva had to be distinguished from the other issues, for instance, that is of the same category. The Constitution rightly said, specifically that if somebody had been sworn in to complete the tenure of his predecessor, for instance, like Goodluck Jonathan, he ran together with late Jaradua. When Jaradua died, his tenure was still remaining at least 2 years, or 1 year. And then, because the Constitution said if the president died, the vice president take over, Jonathan took over and then completed that term and then run again for his own, which would have been the first 4 years. But the Constitution said, for completing that, the remaining term of your predecessor, you have now deemed to have taken oath of office in that one, and then you have only one more term. Now, the difference between this one with the player principle is that you are saying if this is supposed to be an antics for him. No, I have earlier said the issue of pre-election matters ought to be have been resolved. That's what way you can have these people checkmated by this if it's a strategy or a trick or anti whatsoever. Because if that pre-election matter or after the election issue is completed before somebody is sworn into the office, then automatically it does not have any issue to go to court again on the basis of election. But when you allowed it, to continue to fly, and then the Nigerian, political, judicial proceedings is always very time, consuming. So if somebody has stayed in the office for first, second, and then you keep pursuing him to the court, he finished in the first court, you go to the second instance, and then to the Supreme Court, he would not say it is his fault. It's people that took him to that court. It's not his antics. And then again, you said, must it always be the governor of the... No, but it is right. The once you are of age, 30, 35, the law allows you to aspire. And if he has, indicated interest to aspire as a citizen of Nigeria and a citizen of Bayelsa State, nobody would have to stop him because you would think that he has always been there. Why must it always be him? Any other person can come. And by the way, aspiring to become the governor does not mean he has become. It is the people that will have to vote him in.
All right, so Asuko, let's look at something else. Let's look at something else. Let's swipe a little away from silver, but still sticking to elections and the judiciary. Now, we know that, the petitions and all of that has come to an end. But the PDP had a forum yesterday. And one of the issues that they highlighted is that, yes, we have seen what the Supreme Court has said with regards to the presidential election. And we believe that we should lay low with all of our case. But then they highlighted an issue. Now, I'll just quickly quote, as a forum, we believe and we state our faith and confidence in the judiciary to do justice in political and other cases before the court. But however, we are concerned that while the Supreme Court has let down precedents on pre-election issues, PDP candidates in Plateau State are being disqualified on the same grounds which some other courts have upheld people in other places. We urge the judiciary at the apex level to ensure that our jurisprudence is not distorted, because it looks like what is taking some people out of their petition in other states is restating people. So there seems not to be a clean slate upon which the judiciary is handling election petition. It is disqualifying some people in some states and in some areas with certain faults and upholding some others in certain areas with the same. So would you, just elaborate on that or break it down for us to understand what's happening with the judiciary in these election petitions?